His girlfriend looked at me and said, "You're too old to understand real love." For 3 years, someone kept writing me letters. Letters nobody knew about. For years, I thought that chapter of my life was over. I had no idea someone had been carrying it with him all along. Some love doesn't disappear. It simply waits for the right moment to return. Every heart has a story. My son's girlfriend said it with a smile, which somehow made it worse. "No offense," she said, cutting into her chicken, "but I just don't think people your age really understand love anymore." Real love. The kind people my age actually feel. The table went quiet. My son, Daniel, froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. I set my wine glass down carefully. "I'm 61, Priya," I said. "Not extinct." She laughed like I'd made a joke. I hadn't. "My name is Eleanor Voss. I am 61 years old. A retired high school literature teacher, a widow for the last 11 years, and apparently, according to the 26-year-old sitting across my dinner table, too old to understand something I have spent most of my adult life thinking about more carefully than most people ever bother to." Daniel tried to smooth it over. "Priya didn't mean," he started. "I did mean it, actually," Priya said, still smiling, still pleasant, the way people are pleasant when they have no idea they're being unkind. I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about telling her about Robert, about the 18 years we had, about the year he was sick, and I learned to give injections with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. About the way grief doesn't simplify love. It deepens the understanding of it in ways a 26-year-old has not yet had the chance to learn. I didn't say any of that. You might be right. I picked my wine back up. Daniel looked at me like he wasn't sure if I meant it. I did not mean it. But some battles aren't worth having at a dinner table. Some things just need time to answer themselves. What Priya did not know, what no one in my family knew, not even Daniel, was that for 3 years, someone had been writing me letters. Not emails, not texts, actual letters, folded into actual envelopes, left in my mailbox between the water bill and the grocery store flyers, with no return address. The first one arrived 11 months after Robert's first anniversary passed. I almost threw it away, thinking it was some kind of solicitation. It read, "I don't know if you remember me, but I think about the way you explained Tennyson to a room of bored 17-year-olds on a Tuesday afternoon in 2004, more than I probably should. You made grief sound like something worth surviving. I needed that, more than you ever knew." It was signed only, "A former student who never said thank you properly." I sat at my kitchen table holding that letter for 20 minutes. I taught for 31 years. Thousands of students passed through my classroom. I genuinely could not place who this was. A second letter came 4 months later, then another 6 months after that. Never the same handwriting twice. Typed, actually, every single one, careful and deliberate, like someone drafting and redrafting before committing to paper. They were never romantic, not at first. They were about books, about a specific lecture I'd given on Hardy. About the way I'd once stayed after school for 2 hours, helping a struggling student write a college essay about his father's death, never knowing, he wrote, that I would lose my own husband to the same disease years later, and handle it, he imagined, with the same patience I'd shown him. By the 5th letter, I understood something had shifted. I think I have been in love with the idea of you since I was 17, he wrote, and too much of a coward to say so when it might have mattered less. I don't expect anything from telling you this. I only know that I have carried it for a long time, and carrying it quietly has started to feel like its own kind of dishonesty. I did not write back. There was no address to write to. I started watching my mailbox the way you watch for weather. Over 3 years, I received 11 letters. I kept every one in a shoebox at the top of my closet, tied with the kind of ribbon I used to use for wrapping Daniel's birthday presents. I never told anyone. Not my sister, not my book club, certainly not Daniel, who already worried that I spent too much time alone since his father died, and would have either made it a bigger deal than it was, or worried it was some kind of scam. Some letters made me laugh out loud at my own kitchen table. One described in careful detail an entire imagined conversation we might have had about a novel he'd just read, as if he were still 17 and hoping I'd call on him in class. One letter, the 8th, included no romance at all, just a single paragraph about how he had become a teacher himself because of a woman who made me believe a single hour of attention could change a life. I wanted to be able to give someone else that hour. That was the letter that made me cry. By the 10th letter, he had started signing them differently. I think I am running out of ways to say this without saying it directly, so I would like to meet you, if you would ever allow it. Not to ask anything of you, only because I think I have spent 3 years writing to a memory and I would like, just once, to speak to the actual person. He left a phone number. I stared at that number for 2 days before I called it. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 44 years old, younger than I'd expected, though not nearly as young as Priya would have assumed, had she known any of this. He taught English literature at a high school 40 minutes from where I used to teach. He had been, as the letters said, a student of mine in 2004, 17 years old, quiet in the back row. The kind of student you remember as a presence more than a name, until decades collapse the distance and someone reminds you exactly who they were. We met at a small cafe on a Thursday afternoon. I recognized something in his face the moment he stood up from the table. Not the boy he'd been, but something steady underneath that I realized, sitting down across from him, I had in fact noticed once, 22 years ago, in a classroom full of teenagers who mostly weren't listening. I almost didn't send the last letter, he said. I'm glad you did, I said. We talked for 3 hours, about books, about teaching, about Robert. I told him honestly, and he listened the way his letters had promised he would. About his own life, a marriage that had ended quietly 6 years earlier, a daughter he co-parented with more grace than bitterness. He did not propose anything. He did not rush. He asked, at the end of those 3 hours, if he could write to me again. Actual letters, he said, because he'd grown to like the slowness of it, the deliberateness. I said yes. We had been writing, and by then occasionally meeting, for 4 months when Daniel invited me to that dinner with Priya. I had not told my son any of it, partly because it still felt new and fragile, partly because some things deserve privacy before they deserve an audience. 3 weeks after that dinner, Daniel called me, sounding pleased with himself. Mom, there's a literature night at Priya's old high school. Her cousin teaches there, and they're doing some kind of alumni panel about teachers who changed people's lives. Priya wants to go support her cousin. You should come. Might be nice for you to get out. I almost said no. I said yes, mostly because Daniel sounded hopeful, and I had learned, over 11 years of widowhood, to say yes to hopeful invitations more often than my instincts wanted to. The gymnasium was decorated with string lights and folding chairs. Priya arrived in a sharp blazer, looking pleased to be the one who'd organized this, greeting her cousin's colleagues with the easy confidence of someone who has never doubted her own welcome anywhere. The panel began. 3 teachers from the district invited to speak about why they'd chosen the profession. The third name called to the small stage was Marcus Webb. I sat very still in my folding chair. He had not mentioned this. He had no reason to. He didn't know I would be here, in this gymnasium, on this particular Tuesday, brought by the very person who had told me 3 weeks earlier that I was too old to understand love. Marcus spoke for 6 minutes about a teacher who had changed the trajectory of his life with a single hour of attention during the worst year of his adolescence. He did not say my name. He didn't need to. I knew exactly which year, which hour, which boy in the back row he meant. When the panel ended, Priya leaned toward me, clapping politely. "That story was so sweet," she said. "Imagine carrying a crush on a teacher for that long. A little sad, honestly." "Is it sad?" I asked. "Or is it just patient?" She gave me a small, indulgent smile, the kind you give someone you've decided doesn't quite keep up. Then Marcus came down off the stage, scanning the room the way you do when you're looking for someone specific. He found me. His whole face changed. He crossed the gymnasium floor directly toward our row, past Priya's cousin, past several parents he clearly knew, and stopped in front of me. "Eleanor," he said, surprised and warm in a way he had no idea he was revealing. "I didn't know you'd be here." The folding chairs around us went quiet in that particular way a room goes quiet when it senses something it hasn't been told yet. Priya's mouth opened slightly. Her eyes moved from Marcus to me and back again, recalculating something in real time. "You two," she started. "Know each other," I said. "Yes." "From the panel," Marcus said, then caught himself, glancing at me. Should he say more? His eyes asked. I gave the smallest nod. "Mrs. Voss was my high school English teacher," he said. 22 years ago. I've been writing to her for the last 3 of them. Daniel, beside Priya, looked between us with an expression I will remember for a long time. Not shock, exactly. Recognition. Like several small things he'd noticed about me over the last several months were suddenly arranging themselves into a sentence that finally made sense. "Writing to her," Priya repeated slowly. "Letters," Marcus said. "Actual ones. I know it's old-fashioned." Priya looked at me. The smile she'd worn at the dinner table 3 weeks earlier, the pleasant, certain one, had gone somewhere else entirely. "I didn't realize," she said. And for the first time since I'd met her, she did not sound certain of anything. "You said something at dinner," I said, gently, because I did not want this to be a moment of cruelty, only of clarity. "About people my age not really understanding love. The real kind. The intense kind." Priya's face colored slightly. "I think," I said, "the intensity doesn't disappear. It just stops needing to announce itself." Marcus, beside me now, said nothing, but I felt him not quite hide a smile. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" "Because it was mine," I said simply. For a little while, I wanted something that belonged only to me, before it had to belong to everyone else's opinions too. The gymnasium lights flickered once, the way old gym lights do, and somewhere behind us, Priya's cousin was calling people back to their seats for the closing remarks. Priya looked at me for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she said, and for the first time, I believed she meant it. "You don't owe me an apology," I said. "You owe yourself the chance to be wrong about a few things, while you're still young enough for it to be cheap." She almost laughed. It came out more like an exhale. Marcus offered me his arm as we made our way back to our seats, An old-fashioned gesture from a man who wrote old-fashioned letters. And I took it, and Daniel watched me do it with the particular softness of a son, realizing his mother has an entire interior life he had never thought to ask about. The lights came up fully. The panel resumed its closing remarks. I sat in a metal folding chair in a high school gymnasium at 61 years old, my hand resting in the crook of a former student's elbow. 11 letters waiting in a shoebox at home, tied with ribbon I'd once used for birthday presents. And I thought, some kinds of love take their time arriving. That does not make them less real. It makes them earned.